Kia ora, good morning everybody. Welcome to the hearings for our town concept plan. Really good to see you all here this morning. So before I get things underway, can I please start here.
Tamari e te pare, ngā mihi ki a kau te katoa, a hau kua Māori, a kua Pākere, I raro tamari o tō tātou whare, kareki e tūnei, ko tātou katoa ngā iwi o te atu, nō reira, koe nei a tupaki ngā mihi ki a tātou katoa. So I'd just like to say, on behalf of us all who are gathered here, I hope that we're going to have a good day for this meeting, and that we can agree to disagree, or that we can agree to agree. No reira, kia karakia rā. Te pā tēnei mātou I tuku a tēnei ngā whakamoemiti, ngā whakapētei ki a koe, mohi ki ane koe, ngā hihei o te katoa. Ngai hua ngā kauhou ki roto ki tēnā ki tēnā o tātou. Kia pai prōri e tōni, ki tō ingo tapu I roto I ngā wā. Te pā āpina mātou I roto I ngā whakaro o tēnei rā, o tēnei kaupapa, kia tika I te haere tēnei kaupapa, kia tika hoki ngā whakahaeringa o tēnei kaupapa, rore pā tēnei o mātou whakamoemiti ki a koe, I rungi te ingo tō tama ihu, pai te me tō wairua tapu. Amen.
Getting underway, there's a couple of apologies from three of our councillors, Councillors Delphus and Cross, this morning. I was moved that the apologies be accepted. Seconded, Councillor Williams, all in favour? Okay, thank you. Any councillors or those who are at the table that need to declare a conflict, feel they should declare a conflict of interest on any of the submitters speaking today, or subject matters?
I just want to note that I declared a conflict of interest at our last meeting on 9th.
Right, moving on to the hearing schedule. It sounds very formal, guys, okay, but what I want here is that there's just really low key. So what we've got that is pretty much 10 minutes per speaker sort of deal, so we have some time constraints around the order of control. Look, I'll leave it up to you all in terms of how that order is taken. And then at the end, there'll be time for questions as well. Victoria.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Tēnā koe nei tu whare te whira tō tātou hui tēnei hapa. I'm just thinking in terms of the conflicts of interest. Nehe Regional Management Committee have been, I guess, working on the workshops and partnered with Council throughout the entire duration of the development of the plan, and so just in terms of that, I think we probably should formalise that. Yeah, formalise that.
So, that's it. If we just be pretty relaxed about this, we're all here to listen, and that is what it's about. We've done a bit of listening over the last couple of weeks, which has been beneficial to us all. So I'll open it up to the floor. Who wishes to speak first on behalf of the whānau of Ōtorohanga, and then we'll go through the speakers from there. So if you come up to the front desk with us, the two chairs, and introduce yourself, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
E te tautoko a hau te mihi ki te whare o te atua, tū tonu. Mihi ki te papa kei waho rā, tēnā kōrua. worship the me, kata ko te kamuti, tēnā koutou. Kia oro hoki, ngā kanohi o te RMC, tēnā kōrua. Who are we? How do we link? What gives us the right to stand before you all today? What are the spaces we are standing in? What are the spaces we stand on to address our submissions to the town concept plan? By way of introduction, we collectively acknowledge our first parents, Rangi and Papa, and their cemetery tamariki, who then provided the spaces for kaitiaki tanga to exist. From these spaces of those cemetery tamariki, that we take our gifted atua spaces, which in turn provide us our rights as kaitiaki to care for our whenua, whakatuanuku, and the environment, because the environment is made out of 70 tamariki. Giving special acknowledgement to the waipā-awa, the veins of the whenua. Then travelling on forward through eons of time, I wish to acknowledge the landing of the Tainui Waka at Kāwhia. And the later surgeon of Kahupeka, who came inland from Kāwhia. And with her coming inland, we get the naming of the maunga. From that decoy, my identity, the maunga for myself is Whirongia maunga and Kaketuku maunga. Then we go on to Te Iti o Apakura Papakainga. That's a space that was left for myself by my tūpuna. Whakamau te wirihanga and wikitoria te mamai pahi. So standing in their footprints, I submitted a submission to the town concept plan under Te Iti o Apakura Papakainga, which exists and is an old papakainga that existed before Captain Cook arrived here. On that papakainga, I was born more than 70 years ago, and my whenua or my placenta is there. That is my ukaipo, and it's that ukaipo that was reserved for me, and only I can stand on my own ukaipo. No one else stands for me. No RMC, no marae, no trust board speaks for my ukaipo. And so today I stand before you with a woven cloak. And so the universe that I've just introduced to you in a small paragraph of time, even though it covers a lot of eons of time and multiple spaces throughout the generations, and that they are a woven universe, and it comes from that. That's symbolism of a woven universe. And so we are now going to introduce ourselves and say how come we all weave into the spaces that we stand on. Tūpirongia, ko te maunga ka te potu, Ko te awa wai paerere, ki ka hotea, ki ka hotea. Tēnā rā tātou katoa. E tua tēnei he mokona noro tō tainu me tūwhare tō, o mani kapua tōku ingoa. E tautoko ana ngā mihi, kua mihia I tēnei ata, me te kōrero o tōku kuia, no reira, koe me te hutu mihi, tēnā tautau, tēnā tautau, tēnā tātou katoa. Ka huri au ki te reo tuarua, te reo pārāwa, actually, is what Nan Nāniu calls it. So, thank you for allowing us this space. I just want to acknowledge the hui that we had with you last week. It was amazing, and we thought, you know, for me, I'm thinking, you know, we're in the King Country, you know, the home of champions. When I think of home of champions, I think, you know, that we're going to come first. That we're going to come first. So I think that that was a first for the council and for our people to be able to remove those whenua that we all whakapapatū, the whanaunga here whakapapatū. And we were grateful for that opportunity to be able to present in that way and interact, even though it was at a late stage. There was a great outcome that came from it, so thank you for that. We would like to acknowledge you for acknowledging us in that way. Today really we've come to talk about the other issues that were raised in or the other concepts that were raised in that draft plan, and one of the things that is significant to us is the historical context in which these pieces of land came about, and in particular for us at Te Reo Apakuta as a papakainga there, is that we're still living today with the effects of a decision that was made back in the 1940s. So some of those things still are outstanding to address, and we'd like to open an opportunity for us to get together and perhaps resolve those things because our papakainga is still living with those decisions that were made back then. The other thing with the Kāwhia Road coming right through that piece of legislation that was used to take that part is on the Kāwhia Highway. There comes right through the middle of our land. So of course we're on this side and that side of the road now. So there are, but also the anga, the caves that are there in that space, and our taniwha that lives in that space, and hence the reason I think that there is always a problem with that corner needing to be redone over and over again. Perhaps we can work through some of those things. So in the plan was around the suggestion that there may be something that happen, that the flooding will occur again. May occur again, and I think you had a time frame on there. We still have flooding. We're still living with the flooding from the town today. So that still hasn't been addressed, and we sort of tied ourselves into that because we saw that the historical issues around the banks and where they stand today and how the river was redirected has had a significant impact on whānau, who I think we'll talk about their part, but how it comes into us now where we are at Te Reo Apakuta. In terms of the RMC, we did actually present ourselves to the RMC at Kahotea Hui to see whether we could be included and Iti o Rapakura could be included, and we were denied that opportunity. So that's okay, because we see that what I see about the RMC is that they represent the one vote on each marae. That's their, but it does not diminish my right as a beneficiary to the marae to have my say. So that one vote does not speak for all the people at the marae. So I just want to make that clear. And also that, of course, the club has said that the RMC is also, or any group like that, doesn't actually speak for her ukaipō for us standing on the whenua. So that's all I have to add to that. I think we've already addressed issues around consultation, but I would still like us to continue this relationship. We see ourselves more in a treaty partnership role as opposed to a ratepayer or that sort of role. We need to, and that's possibly outside the RMC. A good model to look at, and this is just a suggestion for you, is to look at how the Waipa Council operates and how they have their committee. And their committee is open to all whānau who feel, they need representation, such as our papakainga, etc. They actually include them to be a part of that hui, who, give direction to the council. So that's really all I'd like to say for now, and I'll just hand it over to the cousins over here, who live just down the road. Kia ora.
I'm going to start this morning just in terms of introducing us, and I guess for me, again here with our kapusia whānau, is that as I stand here today, I'm also a version of my tupuna before me, and so in terms of kapusia, that tupuna is te emo kāpara, and wearing te arikinui's tartan. That just cements me in a place that takes me back to those tupuna from kaputia, where my whakapapa is as well, and where I grew up in a sense. But of course here today as well, because my whakapapa is interwoven within this whole rohe, within our iwi, within our other iwi, through our whenua, through our awa, practically. And so just wanting to introduce, this is a tupuna, her name is Te Wai. So that's her name is Te Wai, Miri Te Wai. And her mother was Rangi Tuatai. Miri Te Wai married, and she had a daughter, and her name was Ani. Here's Ani. Ani married. And she had a daughter, and her name is Mere Ane Te Wai. And she is the grandmother, she is the mother of my grandmother here, Joyce. This is Auntie Mary's sister, Auntie Mary. It's Joyce. And then my mother here, Linda. Here we go from Te Wai, to Nana Carr, to my Nana Joyce, to my mum, and sitting alongside here at my mum, my Auntie Erin. Also my Auntie Tanya, so she is an apology today. She couldn't be here, and so that's why I'm doing this part. And then sitting with me here, who also couldn't be here today on this generation, is she's an apology today, Shaniqua Pai, so she couldn't be here today. And then my baby, who she's not here, but Henry on Friday got told that she's got to lead her kura assembly for her kaiako who's leaving today. And so there's an apology from Henry today, who was also going to give a kōrero. And so just wanted to introduce this is who we are. Yeah, this is Hawaiian. Maybe have some more kōrero, but just need to do that outside of this introduction.
Kia ora whānau, ko Ira and Paiahau. Dita's actually introduced a lot of my tupuna already, but one of my nannies that were very significant in our lives were Auntie Marama Tua, also known as Auntie Madam. She lived up on the hill, Gavin knows where she lived, just above from our whare. She was an amazing lady in her own right. I just had to write notes because I'm not very good speaker. She lived on River Road. That was what Phillips Ave was known before it got turned into Phillips Ave. She lived above the hill. She was one of the landowners there. And as a young lady, she couldn't have children. Oh, well, she didn't have children of her own. She actually upsupplied one of her sister's babies because she suffered from severe postnatal depression. That was my Uncle Bunny tour. A lot of you will know him. He was a business owner down in Phillips Ave. Yeah. And she also upsupplied another niece and nephew. That was Marama and Clark, recall. She married Albert Toa, who was one of the, who ran a bus service in Ōtorohanga way back when I was growing up, or even before then. She was a bit of a horse whisperer. She had a lot to do with horses. She trained them, and yeah. And funnily enough, talking about the horses, Uncle Bunny, he actually, and my Uncle Barry, my mum's brother, during the 1958 flood, they were on horseback. They rescued a lot of people in the flood, as well as a baby. And they've got photos in the museum, and they had newspaper articles wrote on them about the work they done in the flood. Yeah, so she also was a native weaver. She made a lot of piu-piu and a lot of kete and other things with the local schools and different organisations. And yeah, and a lot of her harakeke that she grew is still up on the hill. We've also got some at Mum's that myself and my cousins still used to weave. Yeah, and she lived into her probably mid-90s. But I just wanted to share that small little about one of our other nannies that lived there. Oh, also, her son, Uncle Bunny, he actually sold a bit of their whenua. But over due course, Uncle Bunny's daughter, Marie Toa, which we know as Min, it didn't sit right with her. She was just, yeah, she ended up buying their whenua back near their house. So she said she just recently done that when it came up for sale again. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou, ngā mihi te whare, ngā mihi ki a koe i tuwhera te arawhata ki te rungarawa, tēnā rā koutou katoa, katoa katoa. So, ko taku ingoa, ko ōrewa Barrett here. So, whai ake au I ngā kōrero, ko kōrero here, Hazel. So, I'll just follow on with the name of Hazel. We have a lot we'd like to say today, but we'll just keep it to, we've got a short time to do it. So I just want to touch on a few points. So when we talk about patriarchytanga, and I think what I've heard from the group that have come here, including my sister, is that we like to think that there's going to be some give and take, and some education, and this is part of us, our giving today. We're giving you information about ourselves with the hope of a better understanding, having had such a great outcome at the last gathering here, and appreciation for the efforts that have gone and the sincerity of the apologies. So going the word patriarchytanga, it can be discussed by many and many different ways. So I'm not going to do any like academic unraveling of that word. I talk as someone who has lived that life, having been brought up by a grandmother who was the last, her and I, the last of an unbroken chain that lived in the hills of Waitomo at a marae known as today as Pohatuiri. The other name is Parahamuti. And I'm proud to say that because there was a time when I thought we were going to be extinguished, lost, because her and I lived there and most had left, gone during the turn and what they called, I guess, the urban drift. So I'm proud to stand here today and say, hey, there's a marae up the hills up there called Pohatuiri. And with my grandmother, we would come down here to Phillips Ave to spend time down at her homestead down there in Phillips Ave. And so what I'm saying is that I suggest that in coming into our world or seeing our world through our lens, it will be a richer world for all of us. We were supposed to be poor because we didn't have money, we didn't have riches, and we didn't have a fancy house as such up there, Pohatuiri. Down here, yes, we had a house that in its prime, when it was built in 1980, was a very, a pretty standout home. So that was the two worlds. So the lens on just a little example. If you look through the lens of Māori from this area, you know that the people up there are related to the people down here. It's not like, that's Waitomo and this is Ōtorohanga. No, we are all, we mixed, we moved about. People have talked about kawhia. We moved in and out to kawhia to get our food each month. And so there's a very rich world that I encourage you, if you haven't already, to engage with. We never felt poor because when I looked out my window where I woke up there, all the whenua in front of my eyes was ours. Everybody had gone, but that whenua was ours. Kawhia was our capital city. You know, all the exciting things happened at the coast. The regatta, the pokais, and we all drifted in that kind of direction. But here was where this was important. It's a ukaiko for my nana and other nanas. But it did harbour the sadness of post-war stories, which we grew up with. So just to say that we look at the world in maybe different lens, and we need to be able to try and understand that difference. And the big one is, of course, district councils work with towns, but our world isn't like that. You know, I mightn't live here, but in the Māori world, I will always belong here, and I will always have rights to stand here, because that's our tupuna's whenua down there. It doesn't matter where I live in this world, I stand very confident that I belong here. So that's another difference between a district council way of looking at who they cater for and our world of we are linked through whakapapa. So whakapapa is strong in my way of thinking. Whakapapa is the truth, one of the few truths that I hold strongly to, is whakapapa. So there's the lens, there's the way that we look at it, and it's an invitation to say, our world is rich. We were entrepreneurial. We were business people. We weren't those people that in about the 50s that were like the dumb Māoris that are too lazy, don't give them a job, you know. That's out, gone. We flicked that myth. Let's go back and have a look. We were the people that went up and down the coast selling food to the people in Auckland. And if you have a good look at our history, you will see that, and even today, just give an inch and our people will be in there with innovation, with business ideas. So I'm saying that to say, I guess, don't be afraid of us. We have a lot to give, and you'll be surprised the width and breadth and depth of it. So that's all I have to say. Kia ora koutou, and thank you again for the great outcome. I think that's the fastest turnaround I've ever seen, and I have to thank you for that. And we look forward to further relationships, because our tupuna, Tony Te Hau, this is the other thing, we were contributors. He gave the land that the school was on. So in our minds we have a history of service and contribution. And we don't want to be stopped from making that contribution. We have a lot that we can contribute. Kia ora koutou.
Tu te mai ngā iwi, tātou tātou e. Tu te mai ngā iwi, tātou tātou e. Pai a te maramatanga, me te aroha e ngā iwi, kia patapatahi, kia patahira, tātou tātou e. Tātou tātou e. So now we're going to go into, we know that each one of us have put down certain suggestions in the submission form, and so now we're going to speak to those suggestions that we put in the submission forms. And what we needed for everyone to see is where we come from. We're coming from a woven universe. We're not coming from a flat piece of paper that has edges to it. That's not our worldview. Our people knew long, long time ago, you can go right over the horizon and keep going round, and the world was round for us. And so what I've noticed, the key thing that I've noticed in this town concept plan is that we are separated. You would have heard I talked about my papakainga out at Kalatea. I talked about the marae out there and where I stand out there. So that awa, it actually connects us all up. And whatever happens in this part of the awa has an impact on us on that part of the awa, as Monique brought up. You know, we talk about the 1950s floods. We're still flooding on our land. Why? Because somebody decided that that was going to be a floodplain. And so it's still flooding down there. And we are wanting to address our kaitiakitanga roles that we have down on our papakainga. And what we want to know is that awa going to be cleaned? We had tuna there, we had inanga there. We have enough records that tells us what was in that awa. But I tell you what, we put a hinaki in there, not one tuna came up in the hinaki. So that's the problem that we are looking at in this concept plan, is the whether the Three Waters is going to deliver it to us. We just want it delivered, a clean awa with our marakai back in the awa, our marakai for our watercress, is back there. We're talking, when I read the concept plan, the 190 pages of it, we had a look at what stood out for me was our papakoinga. So what I'm asking of the council is what is the legislation that's in place to support papakoinga building? You heard the whānau talking about their whenua over here in town. Now, I actually work with the Waipa Council. I'm the secretary on the Ngāi Tōku committee. And one of the things that we are working with the Waipa is to remove the legislation that only allows papakoinga to be built in a marae environment. So I'm asking the council, if you've got any of those legislations in place, can you please remove them? Because this whānau, they want to, they want to build homes for their whānau and for people who want to come home. I read in that town plan that growth is to bring in 100 more homes. Oh, what about the people here? What about building homes for the people here? You're going to get more than 100 if we look at the papakoinga. You're going to get more than 100. So one of my key things was, how does that concept plan address the need here and now? How would it address the need for our mokopuna and our tamariki that are growing up and our great-grandchildren? A kaitiaki, a guardian, needs to, when there is a problem put before them, we're meant to resolve it, to come up with a way forward and not leave the problem behind for the next generation, as someone has talked about. How can we, together, and I'm looking at you guys as kaitiaki too, whether you look at yourself as a guardian or whatever, I'm looking at yourselves as kaitiaki and inviting, as has been said, inviting for us to work together. As I had mentioned at the beginning of my kōrero, we have structures. We have structures going on. We have structures in the trust boards. We have structures on the marae. But a lot of those structures allow people to exclusively stand, and that there is the risk. Because as you would have heard in all of our kōrero, you might have been under the assumption that you were covering the whole lot of us, but as we see, we never got covered. Our needs never got addressed. And one of the problems, big problems with that town concept plan is you're separating us. Kāwhia is us, and we're kāwhia. The marae is us, and we're the marae. I worked alongside of the Waipa Council for a while now, and I know that science likes to separate us up and divide us into little bits and then look at little chunks and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, but when you're working with a group that also has the big vision and the big lens, and that, I think we can go for better outcomes. So the papakoinga is my main thing. We are looking at the papakoinga. We are working with Te Puna Kōkiri. We are working with Tumipairo to get papakoinga on our whenua. That land was not left there behind for cows. And that's what it's being used for. We have a lovely farmer who's got a lease on there now, we've had a kōrero. I'm one of the trustees, the Ahu Whenua trustees on our papakainga, and we've had that conversation. So we're wanting to, we hope that when we come to the council, that those barriers, especially in terms of legislation and that, are removed. And we don't mind working with you, helping to remove those barriers. Okay. The next thing that I put in one of my submissions was about the rangatahi. And that's been brought up, and Erin is the champion for our rangatahi around here. And so for me, sovereignty planting is one of the ways that our rangatahi then get to engage with the environment. It's okay to get them jobs, but what are we going to get them to do? The thing about guardianship and about that woven is it does a healing for us, and it gives us oranga. It gives us well-being. And Erin knows the amount of hidden unwellness that's here in Ōtorohanga and that. And I'm not quite sure if you are aware of it or whether you want to even look at it. But hey, unless it's addressed, no amount of flash town concept plan is going to actually deal with or solve it or heal it. And that. So those were the two things really that I wanted to speak with. I don't know how's our time going. So I hand the time over to anyone else that is going to have a kōrero, and then after that, are you going to ask us questions or something? Oh, not hard ones. Anyone else?
Kia ora anō. So I just wanted to add that, as you know, Tanya is not here today, and so I just wanted to do a couple of things for Tanya, the way in which she was going to be coming into our kōrero. And so we just wanted to say that our tupuna here ground us, bring us straight back to our whenua, so that, you know, we are them, they are us, we're part of all of this together, basically. But just wanted to say that just in terms of this process that we've been through for 8 weeks, in terms of being absolutely terrified and traumatised, in terms of you know, thinking that we were going to be homeless, and which we aren't now, which is awesome, thank you. Just wanted to say that just on the back of that, and on the back of having had 5 and 9 formally removed from that map, you know, I appreciate that a lot, but we also want to ask that we repurpose it. That zone, that those zones are going to be changed, and that our children will never, ever, ever have to go through the trauma that we went through for the last 8 weeks, and thinking we were going to be homeless because it was just a thought. So probably that's the first, just wanting to put that first thing there on the table at some stage. To come back and be sitting at the table with you again as part of that future, isn't it, of us doing this together. So making clear that that's there as well. We want to be here at the table in the future, and my daughter is going to be reincarnated, and she'll be sitting here at the table with her aunties and her nanas, or her cousin, could be in 50 years' time. But, you know, like me, could be 7 years down, another generation, and it could be her mokopuna who are going to be sitting here. Yeah? So just on the back of that, wanting to, and again with thinking about papakainga, and again thinking about Ōrahiri and that area where Carl and Shanique are still actually living, just wanting to say that actually we object to the factory that is out there, and on the back of that we'd like that removed from that area from 9, so that actually there is never going to be a factory there, and that comes from that part of us in terms of kaitiakitanga and looking after our whenua and looking after the blood of our awa. Just wanted to just mention that too, because that pollution that's created here in town and that extends out of town and further is all part of our well-being and our wellness. And I wrote what's in my own, my personal own kōrero submission, and so there's a lot in there that I probably don't need to say over again because it's in there, those things like, the stop banning zero waste, all those promoting those things that can help our rangatahi in a sense later as well. Looking at our waterways and doing that life force, looking at alternative options in terms of looking after our environment, even to the point of when we let industries come in, that they actually pay for the infrastructure. You're going to come here, you pay for that, pay for your pollution that you're bringing, pay for that. So sort of try to look at it in those other ways as well, and I'm sure that there's some things that are within council already I probably don't know about, but just wanted to mention that too. And just want to say again that, and just mention in terms of rangatahi, which is where Erin will come in a little bit more, that we have solutions for these things, and those are the solutions that actually sit with our rangatahi as well. And we're talking, when you did your consultation, did you talk to our babies? Did you talk to our little, the ones coming through, and kohanireo and kaupapa, not just, English medium or, as well. So just thinking, 0 to 30 even, is quite important, isn't it? And just wanted to add into there my own little thing, which was about the history, and I just felt that we didn't do our history very good justice within our plan that we've done, but I think that we can do that a bit better. And again, we're on the table and we would like to ask you to come, and speak with us more about that as well. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora anō. As you probably know, my passion is the rangatahi, and especially the rangatahi that have fallen through the cracks. Our rangatahi need to be looked after better than they have been, and as they are, because they're just getting bored. That's why we're having crime in our community. And they are committing crimes, but they're getting away with it. They already have their own minds. They can come up with their own ideas, so those should be supported. An example is Te Puanga Maro. They're a collective of rangatahi innovators from Tamaki Makaurau, Manurewa and Papatū Marae. They draw a mātauranga Māori, as well as other things like Digitech, science to engage and educate and empower kaitiaki. They're a rangatahi-led innovation. They are rangatahi-led innovators. They're coming up with indigenous solutions for a sustainable future from a rangatahi point of view. We as a community and a council need to engage better to educate more, to empower our rangatahi to want to be kaitiaki of their own environment. Council, I feel, needs to connect with all sectors of rangatahi. Thrive are doing a great job. Mayor's Task Force for Jobs doing a great job, but they're still missing out our ones that are falling through the cracks. I think we need to do something better than what we're doing, because they deserve and they need it. I think rangatahi through meaningful engagement to help build their capacity and their resilience to foster the need. We need to understand their needs and where they see their future. We might think we know, but we don't know. We've got to give those ones, especially the ones falling through the cracks, you've got to hear their voices. You've got to understand their biggest challenges. You need to hear their voices. They have a desire for more than services. more than education and accommodation, you need to understand the world through their eyes. They have and still do struggle with trauma, poverty, isolation, harm from addictions, depression and anxiety, just to name a few. This is what we've got in our town and in a lot of other towns. They need and deserve more investment to help better their needs. We as a community and council need to co-create with all our rangatahi a vision for a thriving community for everybody, all the rangatahi that live here, especially those who are falling through the cracks. We need to increase our rangatahi participation in policy development, which I know is happening, which is great, but we need to do something a little bit better. We need to engage on their terms. We need to come up with more projects for social change with a rangatahi approach. We need to support participation. We need to support the strength and assist and support connections to whānau, hapu and iwi. Solutions we need come not from you or me. They come from us. We need to walk together alongside our rangatahi to make a positive change. I tutored alternative education for going on 8 years, and those were the kids that were placed into the two-half basket. They were removed from mainstream school for reasons, more than one reason, but yeah, they were my best teachers. They taught me empathy, they taught me compassion, they taught me understanding, relationship building and connections, just to name a few. You know, we need to walk in their shoes to see what's actually going on in our community for them. Dame Whina Cooper said, take care of our children, take care of what they hear, take care of what they see. Or how the children grow, they will be the shape of Aotearoa. We've got to get it right. We can't just ignore it. We can't do it occasionally. We've got to do it consistently. Kia ora.
Tēnā tātou katoa. Here to care for your worship the me, councillors, NRMC, tātou whānau, here. I'm just going to read a piece from Shaniqua, or will probably summarise more than anything from Shaniqua, who was unable to make it here today. And I think what's coming across really clearly is about the history, and her kōrero in here is about the history. Just on the back of what Erin said about the rangatahi in Ōtorohanga, you know, I grew up in Ōtorohanga. We had a great time here. We had dances we went to every week. We had bands like Jack Paul, and, you know, the whānau, they had their own band. We had bands every week, and then we had visiting bands, and then we had the billiard saloon, and we had the Lupton's Milk Bar, where Auntie Nairi is now, the Marunga family, which had a snooker table. So we all congregated there on the weekends and sometimes after school. Then we went down to, not Lupton's, was down the other end, the other end was Lupton's Milk Bar, and we go there for those ice cream sodas, you know, with our mates. We had places to hang out, and we were welcome in town. Michael's Milk Bar. I grew up with, my dad knew Aaron's family really well, because, you know, they had the billiard saloon that went between Michael's Milk Bar and where their shop is. There was a huge, like a long aisle thing, dark aisle, and you walk down and you were inside the billiard saloon. There were about 4 or 5 big, huge tables in there. And instead of, we used to come to town with Dad, because we lived out in the country in Waihihi there, and he was supposed to be going to work up Rangipuku, but we spent most of the day in the billiard saloon with all his mates playing, and then we went up to Rangipuku. So, you know, we had a really great childhood growing up in Ōtorohanga. We knew everybody, and everybody knew us. You know, there's still some common names that we knew, you know, some of the Pākehā whānau that were around in those days that are still here today. We knew everyone by their names, we knew, and they all knew us. So when Erin talks about the rangatahi and what's happening for the rangatahi now, you know, Ōtorohanga's not the same anymore, but the world's changed too, and we haven't caught up with that Ōtorohanga needs to catch up with that because our rangatahi keep falling on the wayside. I think, you know, our children need to know the history. They need to know what happened, why they're in the situation they're in. They need to know how intergenerational trauma has affected them. They need to understand how being displaced from their own land has meant that now they're living in poverty. Instead of blaming themselves for that, they need to know the history. They need to understand how that happened. And you know, Ōtorohanga is and Te Kuiti were probably the two towns in the whole of the country that were affected by the Public Works Act, the two most affected places by the Public Works Act. And I talked about Kōpiro and how some of that, how our land was taken by the Public Works Act, it went right up to where the railway line was, before the railway line was there. You know, then the fertilisers came in and that land was sold to them by the council. So, you know, there's all of these stories that our children need to understand so they're not blaming themselves for the position they're in. And you know, the councils, you have to take responsibility for it. And as my sister said earlier, just before, you know, we are entrepreneurs, we are innovators. That hasn't changed. We are still like that. If we were a thriving community, the river was used as our trading post. You know, the main highway, the Waipa was the main highway. So that innovation is still there, needs to be tapped into so that the children can make that real for them, bring it out of them. And you know, I think the responsibility is also for the council to keep an eye on what's happening in the schools in Ōtorohanga, because our children are being damaged in those schools. And it's not new. You know, I experienced that damage too. And it's been quite a long journey coming away from having racist taunts thrown at you every day, or being treated like you're nothing by some of the teachers because you're Māori. The colour of your skin matters. If you're too white, well, there's something wrong there, because you know you're not Pākehā and you're not Māori in some people's eyes. If you're too dark, you're sort of pushed to the side. So we've seen that. We grew up with that, and it still exists today. So you know, we're talking about our history, where we've come from, but where we want to go to now into the future, and we're saying we want to be at the table with you when we talk. When you talk about our town, we want to be at the table and take responsibility with you around what's happening in those schools with our children. We want to be able to keep our eye on that, and we want to be able to go into the schools and say, hey, do a better job with our kids. This is not good enough, because they're falling through the cracks, and you know, Erin can't keep pulling these kids up. The Ministry of Education can't keep coming in with a one way of doing things for our kids, because our kids do things differently, and that doesn't always suit what the ministry brings into the schools with their psychologists and their therapists for our children. It's already been spoken about. Our children love the mara, they love the ground, they love the bush. You know, there's a lot of innovative ways of getting our children engaged outside of academic learning. You know, environmental schools, you know, that's a thing now. We should be looking at something like that for Ōtorohanga. We should be looking at a school that suits our Māori children, not shoving them to a system that doesn't suit them. And of course, the mainstream does suit many Māori children, but for some Māori children, it just doesn't suit them. So we need to be looking at how we can accommodate it in the future, in the very near future, not in the future, but very near future. And just to finish, we would like to invite the council to a 2-hour presentation on our history of our area. We want to lift the profile of our whāia tūpuna, our who are rangatira, and the ones that we've spoken about today. This is Rawani, who we come from, and our whānau come from, whose whakapapas directly to Kōpiro and Philip Ave. We want to talk these stories too, because those stories are left out in the town plan. It's very patriarchal, very male-oriented, and yet we come from Tupunui, Te Kanawa, yeah. But on our other side, we also come from Rawani, and she spoke on the marae. You know, she spoke on the marae, but these are stories that you'll never know about our whāia tūpuna. So you would like you to invite you for that as well. So, Reira tēnā tātou, nā tātou tēnā.
So, wrapping it all up, you now have had a quick introduction to our woven universe, and we are open now for your questions.
Sure, thanks, Hazel. Firstly, thank you for coming here today. I mean, being in front of the council, I appreciate how challenging it can be, and hopefully with our korero we've had over the last couple of weeks, those interactions that we have just become way easier. There's not the barriers we feel that are put in place. We've obviously followed a system which is incredibly legislated on the protocols that we followed for many years, and I think we've certainly talked more recent times about how we need to change our model of connection, our model of sharing information, and just being at the forefront of communication. Again, also thank you for your questions, and I'd just like to just pass on to Janika. Her submission is outstanding, and that they can be shared with her because it's unfortunate that she can't be here. I don't have any questions personally. I think your submissions cover it really well, and certainly coming here and presenting today have reiterated a couple of those points that are of significance, more especially to yourselves. And you'll certainly take notes. We've been listening. I don't know what your boss backwards in terms of where we go with the town concept after this, but your presence here today is really, really important and a big part of that as well. So I open up to the floor. If there's any questions from anybody on the table. Everybody quiet, so I assume Councillor Jerry.
Just one. Kia ora tātou. Thank you so much for your presentation. It's been really interesting, and I appreciate it. It's not an easy thing to do for some people. I was just very interested in the history side of things and the hui that you're saying that you'd like to invite us to. Now, I'm very aware too that the Kawhia Aotea township plan is about to kickstart. So would that history include all of the whakapapa from that area as well as this area, or are you talking just mainly Ōtorohanga, around Ōtorohanga?
It's a good part, Ken. You know the Patihua, Whare o Patihua, that actually was the skeleton of that whare actually came from Te Papa o Whatihua over there in Aotea. And so, as has been expressed, yeah, we see our woven universe, they weave into this universe that we look at. Yeah, we don't look at it separate. And that, like I had said, with this town concept plan, it just went that far, just over as if the river's going nowhere. But it is. It carries on down. It actually carries on down and links up at Ngāruahia with the Waikatoawa and that. And so it all the way down, whatever is happening to that awa has an impact on everyone all the way down. And we as we go down, everyone will be saying in their pepeha and their whakapapa, they'll be connecting themselves to that awa, to the Waipa awa. And very interestingly, you know that the Waipa Council has used the identity of our awa for them in their name, instead of us having. Oh, I say that to them. But, you know, they call themselves the Waipa champion. Yeah. So I hope we have some way of getting them to contribute for using our awa's name. Is that explained?
Yes, that's great, thank you. And with the invitation, or could you extend the invitation to the community board from Kawhia as well?
Oh,
yeah. That would be really useful. Yes.
Yeah. People want to speak with us.
Yeah.
So, question here from Councillor.
with something that Erin said with social change, and I was talking to not the right forum to be talking about that. I'm talking about options for things that councils could we be thinking about in terms of sort of addressing the rangatahi. So happy to get the conversation another time, or happy for a few ideas just now.
Well, I did think to that, and I thought, you know, we do this with the Waipa Council all the time, especially with the doc and all of them, because they're all wanting to know what's the Ōtorohanga Māori in the peat lakes and everything else. But, you know, everybody that has a position of responsibility in the community must have at some time studied, and gone through some tertiary type training. And what is required in those tertiary and wānanga is to do some research. So I say to them, and I say it to you too, research. Have a look. Erin has talked to you about a project that is going now. And now, you know, it's a South Auckland rangatahi. It is amazing. It's amazing what they've done. And we could give you that research, that reference point, and you might like to have a look and see what those rangatahi are doing. I tell you what, they're just amazing. What they're doing. But one thing, just a simple thing, is, you know, I have a look, I like the Kiwiana thing. You know what's the problem? You've got jandals up there, I don't know. Is there any gumboots there? Hey, is there any swan dries there? You know, is there any kakahu? Is there anything that we can relate to? Is there, as what is happening across Aotearoa, whether we want it or not, the reo is coming. It's coming at you fast. Quick and fast. The reo is coming. Ōtorohanga Māori is coming. And the ao is moving. And that. And so it's about investing in our own mātauranga to get to see how we can work together and how we can build a future and reset it with new timeframes, with new lens for our rangatahi. That might be a bit challenging, it might be a bit hard, but hey, you know, if you're like me and I've had to learn how to use Facebook and Messenger and all of that, you know, that's challenging. And that, but hey, you want to leave something behind for the mokopuna? We need to move. We can do it. We can do it. We can work together and we can do it. We can bring those new ideas. Why? Because you've got a good background. You've got a good foundation. We've introduced you to our background and our foundation. Woven together, I tell you what, we can be the most uniquest town in the Indigenous world. We're not thinking just local, we're thinking Indigenous. Because Indigenous thinking and Indigenous mātauranga is the message of the future. That's the pathway of the future. So, thank you that we've been able to share this with you. Yeah. Does that answer your question? We can give you, Erin can that reference to that. They're on Facebook. They're amazing. I wanted to get on it myself, but they were only doing it for the Tamaki people. Anyway, we're going to have something down here.
One last question from Gabe.
Okay.
Aroha mai whānau, I don't have a question. But I stand here and ask you, you think we forgot about our history? We included a lot of our history in the concept plan. We didn't come in here so that they could just run it for themselves. We put a lot of our history in it. We put our walk from the Waipa River all the way up to Paul's Bridge. We went around Mātai Whetu, Mātai Apa. We went to Sitare Wanga. We spoke about Urulumia. We spoke about Paurahu and Ngāti Pau, Apakura. We didn't forget the history. We didn't know the personal history of everybody. We done the walk along the old riverbank that used to be behind your fella's home, used to be behind the Leonards, the old council buildings, Auntie Madam's place, all the Pāharakeke that was down Merion's there. We tried to include it all right out to Kāpia, but you can't put in all those information into this concept plan, and we've been doing it for nearly the last 12 months. We've included a lot of the whānau within the Ōtorohanga district, right out to Rākaunui, right out to Kāpia, Awaro, Tokopiko, Apakura, Pūrekireki. We done all those. We didn't forget any of the history. We also included the battle with Hui Putia. We brought in Ngāpuhi to have a talk. We're going to be celebrating next year the 200 years that the battle took place on Hui Putia, and we're talking with the council about that to help with all that as well. So we talked about the county fairs, we talked about the regattas, the waka, the whale boating in Kāpia. So I'm sorry if you think we've left people out. We tried to include all of that in our kōrero. We spoke with Tom Raw, Nick Tufamai, a lot of people we spoke to, a lot of maraes, a lot of hapu. So I need to apologise if you think we've forgotten a lot of areas within our district itself. But we tried to hit all those spots to ensure they knew where we came from. Ngā mihi koutou.
I think one thing that, good to hear that you've done all of that, a lot of work, lots of, and it is reflected in there. But, as I said, our whai tūpuna on this, but also we were.
Yeah.
And we were the key people because the industry was going on thriving and Moreira Tena. Max, can I just?
And I think too.
Yeah, well, we just, can we, sorry, I just, before we ask a question, and I would love to have carry on this quite all the time. This is a lot to cover here, and I think we're just at the beginning. We've also got to be mindful of our other speakers that are in the room as well, that I may have some time, but we can't. So one final question, quick answer, then we must move on.
Yeah, tēnā tātou katoa, anau ko tā wānei raro I tēnei kaupapa. So I just wanted to, there seems to be this idea that actually RMC speaks for all of you. Actually it doesn't. It never ever has. This was just the initial phase. I think what might have been missed from our whakaitanga hui was that there was always an intention to consult and to engage entirely with all people who were interested in terms of our whānau, with all of the marae. That didn't happen because Derek died. Derek Worcester, for those of you who know Derek Worcester, straight after that there was Yvonne Mitta's son as well. And so we got very, very tied up in that. And all of a sudden, time ran out. Now there was no intention whatsoever from the Nehe Nui RMC to speak on behalf of anybody. Never. There never is. This was just a starting point to then go out e pewhano kotou whakaro. That was it. That was it. So I want to clarify that. The second thing I want to clarify, Hazel, is that Nehe Nui did not make the decision to shut Te Iti Apakura out. Actually, your representatives were the two representatives from Kahotea Marae, and that is Barney and Rama. Those are the two representatives, and we are tied to legislation. That's it. So we didn't make a decision. It's just we couldn't make a decision because that's how the legislation says. It has to come from a marae committee nomination. And I just wanted to make that clarification there, that we had no intention whatsoever to walk over anybody else's kōrero and say we are it. It was just a starting point to then go out and have a kōrero with everybody. So, e kōrero ana I roto I te rangi Māori, I roto hoki I te aroha, kia tātou katoa, he whanaunga, tātou katoa, I roto I tēnei kaupapa, mō tō tātou tāne. Nō reira, tēnei tāku, tēnei te mihi atu kia tātou katoa.
Thank you, Your Worship, for the opportunity to present. We hope that we've contributed something to the town concept plan. We look forward to its further development and we look forward to further engagement.
Excellent. Brother Stuart, welcome. Thank you for your patience.
Good morning, Your Worship, councillors. I'll start off by saying I'm not against progress in the town or in the district by any means, but I do not support the OTCP at the moment based on previous experience with other consultants and plans that the district has been involved in reasonably recently. I'm not speaking as a representative of the Community Trust, but my submission is informed to a large extent by some of the experiences we had fundraising for Papakanga Homestead, and in particular the South Waikato Economic Development Action Plan, which was formed to identify development opportunities in Ōtorohanga, Waitongo and South Waikato councils a few years ago. It appears to be similar to what OTCP is suggesting or proposing. This plan used PricewaterhouseCoopers, consultants Martin Jenkins. The three councils contributed to the funding for that plan. It seems to have gone absolutely nowhere. I don't know what the council's contribution to it was. I do know South Waikato pulled the plug because they believed it wasn't giving them value for money. And the last discussion I had was actually with the late Derek Rooster, who was there on behalf of Nehan and Hui. And he said, Stuart, he said, I don't know. He said, I think this has just disappeared into thin air. It's gone nowhere. So on that basis, I question the value that consultants will bring to a plan for Ōtorohanga. I would have thought our own long-term plan and the expertise that we have in our own business community right across the district would have allowed us to encourage and plan for development without the extra cost of bringing in outside consultants and having a lot of lovely words, but not much. We need, what we need is action that the community can buy into and that we can proceed with at the least cost. A lot of you will be aware, some time ago, previous councils, Mayor Eric Tate and his council took a couple of bold steps. They created Progress Park, pulled down the old Ōtorohanga Town Hall, created Village Green, and both these proposals met with serious, strong objections from people when they were proposed. Oh, yeah, this could be a waste of money, nothing's going to happen. The council took ownership of it themselves, got it off the ground, and I'm sure no one questions the benefit today of Progress Park or the Village Green or the Kiriyana project, all those things that were put in place then. If new businesses near the larger end of the scale need a 6-storey building, why isn't it possible for the LTP to allow such development in the town centre on a case-by-case basis? Why can't the commercial centre be treated on the same basis as the industrial sector of the community? In the same way that Ōtorohanga Timber Company, Bulk Lines, Gildrats have developed their industrial sites. As long as we allow for them to do that and don't put unnecessary impediments in their way, I'm sure as a council and as a district we can allow for that without having an expensive consultant's plan to tell us so. Also, if we need a pedestrian rail over bridge to Hui Reserve, why don't we just build it? District Committee has done with theirs. So I think we need more information about what the concept plan is actually going to achieve for us. It's told us what we can do, and there's a lot of fairly bureaucratic language. I put it nicely, but many of us know what we need. First of all, if we're going to have pedestrian and cycle-friendly spaces in the centre of town, then we have to ship State Highway 3 to Huiputia Drive. Because what's the point of having pedestrian and cycle-friendly access with heavy trucks and tractors barreling through the main street? It doesn't really, I can't see that works. We can't have both. In terms of what the district needs, I think the zero waste strategy is very important, and the council can do a lot more in terms of encouraging recycling. We only have a couple of plastic recyclers, 1 and 2, I think, at the moment. Other councils have a lot more and are working towards improving their recycling processes, and I think we need to up our game in that regard. I think we need to upgrade 3 key intersections and as I said, manage the heavy vehicle traffic through the main street. And the way to do that is to do what Te Awamutu have done, Huntly have done, ship State Highway 3 up town. I think the idea of informative and artistic gateways at each end of the town is a very good idea. And on SH39, it will invite people into town, even if State Highway 3 is moved. If people don't know what is there, they won't come in. And I think the Māori community have a very big role to play in helping us achieve that. So that's all I'll say. Thanks, Your Worship. You've got obviously the copy of my submission, so I'll leave it there. Thanks for your attention.
Thanks, Stuart. Thanks for your submission. Yeah, look, I agree. Sweep, which was a result of Te Waka, the South Waikato Economic Action Plan. I think it was 4 from the beginning. Absolutely agree with you, and it felt like that the South Waikato, Waitangi, and ourselves were an afterthought of the whole initiative, and it came to nothing. So I suppose that led to a concept plan sort of focus on our district. So not so everything could be achieved, but we can ask the question of the community of what we see as fundamental and really important. And like you talked about zero waste, absolutely. And in the development of our last LTP, the community at large was against further investment in zero waste initiatives. But what's coming to the fore on this one, with greater consultation and the re-engagement of the community, that is actually now a priority for the community. So there is a value add with our concept plan, so we can ask the question again. And I think this council has been somewhat negligent in their ability to communicate with our district up until now. And if we can keep on having these conversations, we'll get more feedback from the likes of yourself, from the other guests in the room, so we can actually determine what those key directives are. Some things you've said here, absolutely. Part of our deliberation will be about things that we'll remove from the concept plan or not put serious consideration into. So the likes of your submission, the likes of the submission you heard earlier, incredibly important for us going forward, because we're not going to make these decisions without the contribution of everybody that wants to be engaged. So thank you.
Okay.
Any questions of Stuart?
Question, but in support, Stuart, I just want everybody in this room to understand that Betty Home, our rest home, down the end of the main street, just recently opened the Ōtorohanga unit. 20 jobs, 20 beds for our district, and this is the man behind it. There was the money, of course, came from the very generous John Oliver, and 3 million. Further 3 million came from central government, and thanks to this man right here in front of us, who went down, knocking on doors, sending email, and badgering away until the government finally got behind us, helped us build that down the end there. That would be acknowledged. So I just want to, you'll probably kill me for saying it. I'll take the risk.
But thank you very much. Yep. Thank you very much.
Thanks for registration too. we're just going to take a 5 or 10 minute break. If there's any questions you want to have of us individually, or those who are in the audience, please feel free. introduce yourself and our apologies for how your submission has been lost in transit somewhere.
Tōku ingoa, ko kake puki te maunga, ko waipate awa, ko te kotaritanga te marae, ko ngā tere nunga te hapu, ko ngā tere te iwi. Wai Claim 1138. What this involves is Kariki Urupa and Arawai or Waiwaia, where the river was diverted. I would like the council to withdraw the plan to create a water park, Ōtorohanga Town Concept Plan, extending towards Kariki and Waiwaia's Wahitapu. Why? Any future planning undermines the Crown and Ngāti with iwi. The RMC can better inform you of associated claims and nexus of law. Why? Because Kariki and Wahitapu have not created stoppings and river was diverted. A submission that is not part of the redevelopment strategy. However, areas such as our Wahitapu and Around will be affected. The area below my residence where the river was diverted due to flooding back in 1958, where you would like to create a water park along that river bank. Because our kaitiaki was diverted, variation is to exclude Waiwaia's Wahitapu, referred to Ngāwai Waiputa Waipa River Act 2012, version is at 12 April 2022, Vision and Strategy 2F. I need to make an amendment to the second paragraph of my submission. It was actually collated with number 1, but it actually needs to be number 2. The amendment, this job to create stop banks, was carried out by the Public Works Act, who took whenua from our Urupa Kariki. To retract this statement as it's incorrect. It was until Koi who were exposed this job ceased. An amendment was needed here. A digger operator was warned to cease as my tupuna maunga keke te tata Hinare Wahanui was buried there in 1915. That's a reference to Pātia 2010. And his grave had a wrought iron fence around it. Unfortunately, the operator continued on, and as a result, he lost his 4-year-old son. However, it was too late, the whole grave and other. This was a personal communication by Walirangi Tawa. Would you like to elaborate on it? If you want.
Sorry, I first must apologise for not announcing myself when I got up to do the click here. I always put God first because he was before me. And my name is Woody Rangatawa. Born in Ōtorohanga on Te Kotahi Marae. I think I was the only one of the Rangatawa whānau of the brothers and sisters that was born there. The rest were from Waikato. Yeah, I was about 12 years old and do the improvements on the stop banks. But before they started carving the hill at Kariki, I was away in Cambridge. They were told, just forgot the contractor at this stage. He was one of the first actually, and then during the 30s there was the epidemic, and quite a few numbers of those people who died during that year were buried up there, but it was hurried too because people were just dropping like flies. Not only from the Te Kotahitanga area, but from our marae across the river also. They were trying to get them up to the hill, but they were buried on the boundary that hills have got, and some of them were laid to rest there. Yeah, it was an unfortunate thing that the beginning of that their excavation on that hillside that they didn't take notice, and we felt deeply sorry for the loss of that child. I was still at primary school then, and it wasn't a sight to see, but we had to walk past that site every day to and from school.
And just in the explanation of Mauna Kiki Tāta's after he's talking about obviously Wahanui, who own the whenua along the banks of the Awa. Just to give you context, on your page 22 of Ōtorohanga in 1944, there is the Rangitawa and the Tata Henry settlement that was on the other side of the river, as of now. In order to build the stop banks, where Wahanui and them had their settlement, I beg your pardon, and their whare were taken in order to build the stop banks. So I just wanted to give that context of why Mauna Kiki was buried where he was because of at the time by the Awa. Sorry, back to the submission after that. I need to retract. It was about, the reason being is it's a part of Ngāti Wharekokowai agreements with the Crown around where my whānau settlement live now. As for part 3 that I would like to submit, and not an amendment, but just for your information, Council, there is a uripa next door to where I reside. Wharekokowai need to make agreements belonging to Ngāti Wharekokowai, and this is recognised by Māori Land Online. There are significant wāhi tapu in various places around my residence and neighbouring property from those who passed in the early 1900s from the pandemic. That actually pretty much concludes my submission. Thank you very much.
So I've just done a course on the wāhi tapu areas. Just wondering if what areas would you be able to upgrade these areas that have been announced, even with that we could upgrade your topographical maps and marking out these areas with our help. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that you are intending to do bring the walkway across the other side of the river on the old pig farm side. Is that correct? Would you be putting the walkway in that area?
At this stage, there's no intention of doing anything until we get the feedback from the community and the public. So it's a concept at this stage.
Oh,
yeah. So there's no marker pegs out there.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't realise that yet.
Because it's under the Waitangi claims, right. So we can't do anything until that's settled.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Was there any questions of Brian? Thank you.
Waitangi claim 1138. And it's under Ngāti Whare Waiongo's claim. That's Ngāti Whare Waiongo area where those pass.
Thank you.
Right. Questions?
No questions. Thanks, man.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So anybody else in the room that at this stage was intending to, so you're more than welcome to stay. It's public forum. Could be somewhat challenging. Awesome. So thank you. Yes, please. That would be great.
No, thank you, Your Worship, for hearing us, hearing our declarations today. And we hope that we see you in the very near future, and hope that all is well. So I'd like to close this section of your meeting with a thank you. Our Father, thou art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive the trespasses against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Makani Michael Chapter. See you again, I think. Have to catch up. Lovely to see you again.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, what I thought would be useful is just to quickly go through the submitters where you did hear people speak in support, just to be 100% clear that you understood what it was they were seeking. If in fact they were asking for a change to the draft town concept plan document. I'll add to that my sense of what the majority of submitters have presented to us in this process is less about changes to the document and more about information and advice and request about where the process might go from here. So, for example, a number had indicated that if our project was to proceed, they have asked us to please make sure to consider this or that, or to be involved in the process. So to my mind, at least, that doesn't necessarily require a change to the document. It's information for the council, and particularly council staff, if the particular action or matter that was being referred to remains in the town concept plan document.
Just on that then, Ross, with all the submitters here, they're obviously going to get written notification from us
Yes.
in terms of where the deliberations go. So what you've just said will obviously be mentioned in that correspondence.
Yes. Yes. So, with your indulgence, I will just refer to the names of the submitters that you haven't heard from. I appreciate there hasn't been a lot of time for you to look at the information, but if there are any elements from your perspective of their submission that you don't think have been captured accurately in the summary, and therefore we don't necessarily have a very clear record of what it is they're asking, then this is the opportunity for that clarification. So I'll read off the summary document form, which has all of the submitters, with the exception of the last submitter that you used on. So Lydia Anderson, David Bailey from Ōtorohanga this morning, Kitty Brown, Joe Butcher, Helen Carr, Louise Carr, Paula Carr, Ethan Corbett. You heard from Hazel this morning. Lisa Craven, Mark Dew, Morgan Dew, Michelle Anya Flintoff, Richard Evans Goodhue. Heard from Stuart Bauer this morning. Wayne Gwynn. You heard from Shannon Stefano Harmon, Anita Harris, Ezekiel Johnson. You heard from Monique this morning. Anaru Kapina. Manawa King. King.
I'm not saying it is proposed jury for coming on again and say, hey, this is what's happening. We can't stop it. This is part of the process, etc., etc. So I think it's just
in the historical part, there was from the whakapapa information, we're looking to have greater recognition and acknowledgement of some of the things that had happened in Ōtorohanga's earlier history.
Yeah, well, I think probably Ross is right, and I think perhaps we need to just have a quick look at that, like that was referred to. I don't know.
Continue that conversation. Yep, because I mean, like you talking with her and me talking with her to understand my perspective of those gaps are as well. Yep.
From people on other occasions as well. Is it council's role? Yes, if council is seen as the leaders in the community, answers, but
well, let's see what the future for local government brings. Maybe it is. You know, that they've made this space where we're looking in, as I said, about 4 weeks' time, and get that information.
It sort of looks like we're leading that way, but we're leading more.
I mean, it's like the social well-being part of it, well-being's huge. So.
Well, so when we met with McNulty, just it's not on the program, but just at the end of a collective that is making sure that those things aren't being missed across local government. And the one thing that wasn't on there was health.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask, can we go back to what the original question was, because I think we've gone off on a tangent.
So the town concept plan is about places, so it's a spatial thing. So I agree that there's some information that we know outside of the TCP that we can provide a response to those emitters, but when it comes to the physical as in place, there are projects that are going to shape place. So whether they're facilities, public realm stuff, reserve management plans, isn't it, I guess, beholden on us to make sure that those processes reach out and work, including youth.
6-month-old. You know, we talk about places, which part of what we look at is no.
So I guess that what she means by is that they got direction. Yeah, there's been a lot of submitters here talking about those.
Yes, yep, absolutely. So it's youth, that's, you know, women, that's people, whatever the groups might be, that we're a bit more finessed in terms of who we see playing a key role in some of those projects, because they won't all be the same. It won't be of you know, parts of our communities.
And back to Will's point, you can't stereotype youth as being one demographic.
No, we can't, but I guess for the purpose of this, if we're talking about a multi-purpose community facility or a hub, we're saying in the list of stakeholders for that action, we see youth as, you know, we call it, for the want of a better term, youth are a group that we want to engage. Now, within that might be a whole lot of going to that level of detail, I think would be pointless in the TCP, but at least it signals we're thinking a bit further than just saying.
Teens. So you're talking millions of teens. And then 18 to 35 is Rangatahi. Too young for space invaders and too old.
It's got youth inclusion, focus on activities and social spaces for teenagers. So that is there.
Yeah, it's there at that general level, but when you go to the action plan, we don't have that level of finesse in terms of who we anticipate on. But sounds like Waikato District have a more expansive definition of public.
We've got the fence space with the community where it's supposed to go. So, I mean, Peter's just sent a response to someone this morning. You know, yeah.
I think the question asked this morning is there any legislation to prevent it from happening? And basically, no.
And the first reaction you get is it's on whenua, it's on Māori land, and it's none of your business. That's the reaction you'll get.
Yeah. So I think what some submitters were asking is, can we make that a permitted activity within our district plan? Rather than saying we've got an effects-based plan, depending on some factors, you can go through a consent process. I get that, that's what we've currently got, but what they're asking for is something different.
Isn't that why we expanded on the residential areas? Was to be able to, at some stage down the track, set up a Papakaina area. Our Papakaina is a different way of your version of Papakaina. Yeah. So that's why we made the residential areas, we extended on the residential areas on that concept plan.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We recognise housing of whatever needed.
Like the new district plan, and I think there's a section in there that will address Papakaina housing.
And we're, depending on what happens with the review of the RMA, we're up for review of the district plan in the near future anyway. So, I mean, I guess there's a.
But it's a really flexible.
Yeah.
Get it?
But So one of the submitters or some of the submitters have indicated they don't see the need to have the level of flexibility for up to 6 stories in the town centre. Thou shall construct a 6-story building. It's tangential barrier to someone who might, with appropriate design and planning consideration, be able to build a 6-story building. Is that it in a nutshell?
Yes, and there are pretty much, and there was general support for an intensification in the core, and there's property economics reasons to do with constructability and the price of buildings, which suggests that in other parts of New Zealand, limiting 4 stories, which is possibly the more ideal urban form, can be limiting because it doesn't enable development. It's too restrictive when you get into the practicalities of buildings with elevator shafts and all the rest that goes with it. Also, parking as well is a big thing too. 4 stories are affordable if you don't have to accommodate parking on site. Often the 6 stories is to accommodate parking within the building footprint.
Okay, thank you. People happy with that? Yep. So good segue there when you talked about parking. So some submitters have said we need more or better parking areas. One of the actions is a parking plan or strategy. So I see that as an obvious response there. But if I can jump into the upgrade of Ōtorohanga Street, so there were some submitters at the commercial end or the southern end who said, but I guess it's just we are parking arrangements that are currently needed for business operations and don't take away the median street because we've got heavy vehicles that park in the middle of the road and offload, and if it was upgraded, that would severely curtail those. We've got a concept of what that upgrade might look like, but there's some work that needs to be done around appropriate signal that what that actually ends up looking like. I would say that 8.9 marks the example, and they would build the definitive at the stage. There you go. So just something that we acknowledge their voice and just say, no.
Thank you for bringing to our attention loading and unloading the trucks in the middle of the street.
Is okay.
We look forward to supporting
From my point of view, what we're planning for is much longer than 2050. And my view, we should be ready and probably we're pushing out time frame covered by the plan each time. And just acknowledge the plan has always got to stay relevant. We don't need or want medium density residential. We should be building out, not up. My view was that there was enough and very strong rationale why we should be looking on taking a more sustainable approach to our urban form and residential activity. Importantly, and also providing options for people who don't necessarily want an 800 square metre section and live closer to town.
Full opportunity and acknowledging that we can't keep on taking prime agricultural farmland for urban developments. So we can't keep on spreading.
A discussion that was held with our youth from the college. I think Gary can expand on this, but there was a discussion that was held with them around how they envisage their future accommodation to be. And they envisage themselves to be living in apartments and not in sort of like taking on nanny's quarter-acre section or whatever it is.
And having to know the rules.
Yeah, and having to know the laws, yeah.
Happy with that? A couple of environmental things which I'll lump together. One is the water quality of the Awa, the Waipa. Drinking water quality came up. Reference to the Maniapoto environmental plan as well.
Can just be acknowledged that that has been a common theme throughout the submissions, and serious consideration will be given to the quality of the Awa and the environment in reflection of this plan.
And everything been undertaken. And within resource consent, so it's not an option really. We have to, we have to seriously consider, we have to do it properly. There's no options there for us.
My understanding is a lot of what's being proposed in the town concept plan is also an environment plan anyway. So maybe we just need to be a bit more forward and
just say that.
Yes.
Exactly, it does. It aligns with Mahere Kaiao and Te Ture Whaimana vision and strategy, and that's really what we've been pushing for years. It's just a not knowing that is the issue around what we've been doing in the background. Some of our marae, Te Kete, Kotahitanga, Kahotea, have been involved in the restoration projects. Te Kete is the longest standing marae that's been involved in Waiparere Noa, and Kotahitanga and Te Kete joined in the freshwater monitoring, and we've been involved in terms of Te Ara, Waiwai, just how much actually council has been involved with the RNC around those projects. And acknowledging the space, I guess, that we both sit in terms of council and
as part of development standards.
Andrew.
So, our current district plan requires water tanks or some method to contain roof water, stop it all overloading our stormwater system. There is a reluctance to plumb water tanks into a down reticulated system. This claims that poses through cross-contamination, which means that if you get pressure drops in the system and the water tanks haven't been cleaned and made dirty and contaminated water into your town system and affect your population.
Referring to grey.
And as a proportion of that volume that will shed off the roof of the hardened surface.